Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. It's the Thursday, July 23rd, 2026 episode of the Marco Duray Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Thank you, everyone, again for being here as always. Let's get right down to brass tacks. We've got lots to discuss. Again, so much going on, so little time. You know, folks, I don't think an hour is enough. I think I need at least 2 hours to get through everything I actually want to get through with all of you, but we make time for what we have to. So I thank you again for being here. And again, sharing the show too. I'm seeing the downloads increasing. I love it. So keep sharing that show when and if you can. Thank you. I want to get down to what's happening with this war with Iran right now, because everything that I'm seeing right now is escalating in the wrong direction. We're not seeing negotiations or talks of peace. Right now, it's all on war. And like I told you before, this is going to get much, much worse before it gets any bit better. And sadly enough, that's coming to be true. I want to start with this article out of Politico, though. This highlights exactly what I've been talking about. We're now seeing the Houthis, or Ansarallah, what they call themselves in Yemen, really coming out and now putting a damper on Saudi oil transportation. Now, I told you this before, that the Saudis, if they were to escalate against Yemen, or for instance, if Israel continued their campaign in Gaza and in Lebanon, you would see the Houthis react in a similar way to what the Iranians did. Now, Saudi Arabia, for reasons unknown, likely because President Trump asked them to, decided to go in and bomb in Saudi Arabia, which is, again, stupid. Even the United States, spending $1 billion last year, couldn't defeat the Houthis in Yemen. So now Saudi Arabia is going to do it? Yeah, I don't think so. And we're not seeing anything positive come from this. Now they're closing down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait to all Saudi traffic right now. We're seeing that they took credit for 2 attacks on 2 different Saudi oil tankers inside the Red Sea. And President Trump, of course, comes back in and says that there'll be grave consequences for Tehran if the Houthis remained on the offensive. Well, they are going to be on the offensive. It's an all-out war. We have all these different fronts opening right back up. You have Israel fighting in Lebanon. You have, again, the Houthis and the Saudis. You have the Bab el-Mandeb Strait shut off to 3% of the global oil supply now. What are the Houthis going to do? Should Saudi Arabia attack again? They're going to attack in Yanbu, their port city, on the western side of the Arabian Peninsula. They'll just take that out. Things are getting worse. They're not getting better. I see nobody trying to talk this down, nobody to de-escalate, except for, and I can't believe I'm saying this to you, China. China is actively talking to the Pakistani government about reinitiating the Memorandum of Understanding right now to see if the Iranians would come back to the table. But the Iranians have made it very clear this is their framework. This is what they're negotiating with. They're not going to change the memorandum. These are their demands. This is what they would like. And they are the ones winning, so therefore they are determining what's on there and what isn't on there. People seem to forget that. They think, oh, well, Trump signed this in Versailles in France. Yep. Why did he sign that? Because, again, we're running low on fuel. Heavy crude oil is not coming in the United States as it should. We're about to enter an oil crisis very, very soon. We need to get that oil moving. We need to get the price of oil down. Again, we're in an election cycle. Things are not looking good for the economy inside the United States. We'll talk about that, especially tomorrow on the program, but we'll go through a couple issues I'm seeing right now just because I can't wait, folks. So it's coming at me so quickly, I've got to share it with you right when I see it so you're well informed. But Trump took to Truth Social, as he regularly does, and he said, please let this truth serve to represent that if they do this again, referring to the Houthis, the U.S. will hold Iran responsible in that the Houthis are a surrogate and or proxy of Iran. A major military punishment will be inflicted upon Iran, and of course the Houthis themselves, who I am very disappointed with in that they have, until now, acted very professionally and smart. He didn't say that last year when he said we defeated them. Well, we actually didn't. We just decided. You know what we did last year, though, when we were going back and forth with the Houthis on Sarala? You know what we actually did? When Trump realized we weren't going to win this, when we spent over $1 billion on missile campaigns, missiles we've wasted, you know what he did? He just said we won and he left. This is exactly what he should do right now. Call victory in Iran. Look what we did. Wait, we blew this bridge up. We blew that bridge up. They're not going to build that for another 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Just come out and say something like that. The clapping seals will come out and say, my God, the greatest president we've ever seen in our lifetime. He gets the recognition he wants and so desires. And the war stops, and then commerce continues again from the strait. We remove the naval blockade that should have already been gone. We stop interfering with how Iran conducts traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. And the Iranians, in response, will stop bombing U.S. military bases, creating them further inoperable, which is going to be a major price tag, certainly this upcoming year for the NDAA. I mean, we're going to have to spend, if we are allowed back in, even if these countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, even if they invite us back into their countries, which I believe certainly Saudi Arabia and Qatar will probably not do this. I believe they'll want us gone. That's what I've been hearing. And I wouldn't doubt that, because what's the benefit of having a U.S. base there? Putting a base in your country so that you're attacked, your infrastructure is attacked, because the United States is escalating tensions in the region? What do these 5 countries, these 5 Gulf Arab states actually gain from this, from having U.S. inside their country? The U.S. left them high and dry in the very beginning of this. We did nothing to stop a lot of these incoming attacks. And our bases were destroyed as a response to all this. So these, Mohammed bin Salman, obviously whoever leads in Qatar, they're not going to want us back. That's just the way it is. That's probably the truth of the matter. They will not invite us back into their countries. I mean, tell you the truth, I can't blame them. There is no benefit to having us there. It just serves to further provoke Iran, unfortunately. Now, as I told you before, the 3% of the oil that is sold in the world market is from Saudi Arabia. So that means if the Saudis would like to continue to sell their oil, what they will have to do now is travel north through the Suez Canal, go through the Mediterranean, go through the Strait of Gibraltar, and then go around the entirety of Africa and to head back over to Asia. That's going to put at least another 40 days, and God knows how much more money involved just to travel with this type of oil to their said destination. This is going to be costly. It's not going to be cost effective for these Saudis. They cannot possibly be happy about any of this. I wouldn't think so. So again, I ask you the question, where's the benefit of all this? What did they gain from this? I see nothing that suggests there would be any sort of gain from this. Really and truly. Now, we're on the 12th straight day of this yesterday. We see American forces striking inside Iran again. U.S. CENTCOM confirmed that yet again. Now, the two sides are really angling for this control over the strait, which again, I say to you, we couldn't take it before. What makes anybody think doing the same exact thing will allow us to take it now? I'm just being realistic, folks. If it didn't work before, in the first 40 days of this conflict, what would cause anybody to believe that it would work all of a sudden now? Even if Pete Hegseth is correct when he lies to Congress, saying that, the military's been decimated, the nuclear dust has been everything's been decimated, yet somehow they're still striking these targets. Or striking these launchers, yet how are they firing these rockets and missiles and these drones? How are they doing it, Pete? Explain that to us. Mr. Harvard grad, how could that possibly be? Hegseth still can't give us a timeline for the war's end. That's what happened yesterday with the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing that he was a part of yesterday, which was a complete blunder. I don't know how people could back this at this point. I really don't understand how people can back somebody like a Hegseth who is constantly lying. But we have to understand something. The Houthis are now involved. The Houthis are involved because, again, they will control what comes out of the Red Sea, through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and, if Israel's trying to get a ship through there, they'll stop that too. That's how all this will happen. They will stop any American ship coming through. They will stop all of it. And again, we know they have the proper technology. Just like the Iranians, they have very intelligent scientists. They can operate on their own. Sure, they work in tandem with the Iranians. No question about that. But this is all part of a greater war that's building. Again, you have Lebanon and Israel to the north. You have now the Houthis against Saudi Arabia, if you will. And now the United States and Iran are fighting with one another. Again, no escalation in sight. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, part-time DJ and also our national security advisor, says, I hope that will de-escalate because I think the Houthis frankly got snookered into this thing by the Iranians. No, they didn't. They made an active choice to go ahead and do this. And by the way, they were attacked by Saudi Arabia. So why wouldn't they continue on with this? He wanted to say, in the Philippines. What the hell's he doing there? Getting his teeth done? Good God. He said, and they were smart to stay out of it, and they should stay out of it, and they should stop. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, it's not a positive development. Well, thank you, Mr. Rubio. Thank you so much for that brilliance of yours. By the way, why is he not making any deals? I always ask myself that question. They send Witkoff, Kushner, they send J.D. Vance. Where is Marco Rubio in these negotiations? And I disagree with Marco Rubio on several things that he says, of course. But honestly, out of the four of them, he's the one with the most political prowess. He's the one with the most experience. He should be the one that should be negotiating for us. That's what a Secretary of State does. It's almost like a prime minister, if you will. So why is he not out there? Again, negotiating with Arachi. Why is he not negotiating with the Pakistanis? Why is all this not working out for us? Where is the diplomacy? Where is Marco Rubio? Why the hell is he in the Philippines? This is going to continue on, folks. And again, I hate saying that to you because it's going to have a dramatic effect on our economy. But this is the direction we're headed. This is where everything seems to be going for us, unfortunately. So the war goes on. I imagine it'll be, again, tit for tat with the U.S. and the Iranians. Whatever we strike of theirs, they'll continue to strike our bases in the region. They're hitting about 12 to 13 different targets constantly, and everything seems to be upticking as time goes on. And just let's be very clear, as this goes on, as we continue to drop bombs every single night on civilian infrastructure or what have you, it puts our military on a damper because we're running low on our own stockpiles. If you listen to yesterday's show, I went into great detail about what we have right now. We're very limited as to what we have. And we just continue to waste and waste and waste. And we're not getting any stockpiles replenished to pre-war levels for several years. So whatever we're using right now, we're not even going to start to begin to see this for a couple years after the fact, which puts us in a very tight space, certainly in terms of national security. I think everybody would agree with me on that one. You know, if we don't have the missiles or we don't have the proper rare earth minerals because China is not giving them to us, which they're also starting to say, that puts us in a complete disadvantage militarily and also for national security purposes. Why no one is talking about this, I have no idea, but this is what's happening, folks. Oh, by the way, this is out of CNBC. It says here that President Trump says that the Saudi nuclear deal is contingent on relations with Israel. It does not include enrichment. Okay. So are we going to enrich uranium for them? Is that what's taking place here? Saying on Thursday that Saudi Arabia will not enrich uranium under the landmark nuclear deal signed with the United States this week. President Trump then did say that the agreement is subject to Riyadh establishing diplomatic relations with Israel through the Abraham Accords. Now, let me just pause for a second here. The Abraham Accords are dead. They're as dead can be. Why would the Saudis go into this agreement with the Israelis, when they coaxed the United States into this ridiculous war that's having a dramatic effect on their own economy? Remember, oil is one of their major exports. They live off this oil. That's why they're so wealthy. Certainly the royal family. Without getting their oil out, and by the way, they're not using the Strait of Hormuz, and right now they're not using the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, so they're in a neutral stance right now in terms of transportation. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a deal with them and say, you know what, you've got to join these Abraham Accords, which, again, I believe are effectively dead. You know, it could be Bahrain and the UAE and Morocco and Sudan are involved, but why would the Saudis join this? The Saudis have to know their part of their land, certainly in the north, is a part of Greater Israel. Again, go look at a map, folks. It's all right there. Now, whether the Saudis would actually do this, I don't know. Certainly, if they're not able to enrich their own uranium, I don't see what type of deal this is. If they're getting the uranium from elsewhere. And by the way, who's going to provide that for them? Went on to say, Caroline Levitt went on to say, this deal with Saudi Arabia is contingent on the condition as far as the president is concerned. We'll continue to talk with our Saudi counterparts to get the deal finalized and hopefully see them join the Abraham Accords very soon. Why is this President Trump's main position right now when Saudi Arabia and Yemen are now engaging with one another? He wants to get them into the Abraham Accords that nobody is even following anymore? What kind of stupid nonsense is this? Why is this a main priority? Well, because Netanyahu wants this. If he can get the Saudis on board with the Israelis, get them to sign this agreement with each other. Look at what Bahrain and the UAE are involved in this too, right? They're hosting bases so that they can attack Iran, the United States, that is. This is what it's all about. It's about creating a coalition so they can go after the Iranians. That's what it's about. Now, you can believe me, don't believe me, but that's what this is all about. They want neutrality. They want people to obviously stick with them on their side. I cannot see anybody going with the Israelis on this, especially what they're doing inside of Gaza, the West Bank, and now Lebanon, which is continuing, by the way. That has never stopped. Netanyahu has never, ever honored any type of ceasefire deal. So why would Mohammed bin Salman sign this? But why would he or his father sign these papers? There's really nothing to it that is beneficial to anybody. Now, U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, who I call Chris wrong, said that the Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdullah bin Salman signed an agreement Wednesday on civilian nuclear cooperation. They also signed a bilateral agreement on nuclear safeguards. The White House has yet not released the text of the deal. Well, let's see the text of the deal. Let's see what exactly they sign. But again, what do we prove? Signing our name to a piece of paper means nothing. We sign our name to the Memorandum of Understanding. What the hell did that do? Nothing. So what do the Saudis actually get out of this that they would sign in now? This is all to get them into the peace accords. The Abraham Accords. That's all this is about. Oh, we'll give you a little bit of this if you just sign this and you now are in cooperation with the Israelis. That's what it all comes down to. And by the way, don't get a nuclear weapon. We're not going to let you enrich on your own. We're going to decide what you do in Saudi Arabia. Nice, isn't it? This does put them on the path, though, for a nuclear weapon. By the way, I've heard rumors, and that's all I can really say that to you at this point, that the Saudis actually themselves quite possibly could have nuclear weapons as well. It wouldn't be terribly difficult for them, just like it isn't difficult probably for the Iranians now. Especially working with Pakistan, working with India, with China, and Russia. None of this seems out of the ordinary. But what it does, it puts more countries on the path to creating a nuclear weapon. That's what it comes down to. Now, the agreement is still yet to be sent to Congress for review, of course. Obviously, that's a major factor in all this, so we'll see exactly what it says in this negotiation. But the main premise, folks, is that Trump is acting on behalf of Israel here. He wants to get another country on Israel's side. That way there is no attack coming from Saudi Arabia. That's what it comes down to. This is what it's all about. It has nothing to do with enriching uranium or even giving them the civilian nuclear energy infrastructure that they so deem to want. And it puts a little bit of a stress on the Iranians because now the Saudis are totally on the Israeli side, should this all work out. But again, we'll see exactly if that actually happens. My guess is probably not, especially with the way things are going with this war. This hasn't stopped President Trump from trying to beef up the military right now inside of what's taking place in the Middle East. President Trump now is suggesting that he's weighing in on a massive attack on Iran as the Pentagon floods the Middle East with elite troops, fighter jets, and now combat medics. He went on to say, I'm considering a massive attack bigger than anything we have ever had before. I am close to making a decision. We are fully prepared for it. I'd like to see how that's going to happen. He then added that the Jewish state, that would be Israel, would join the United States in the operation in 2 minutes if he asked, but clarified we don't need anybody to launch the potential escalation. Well, he's doing it himself, Trump. He doesn't realize it, but he's escalating this all on his own. All these poor decisions that he's making are causing more chaos in the region. But is his statement about the Israelis actually true? Well, I'm looking at something right now. This is coming from the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich. He's one of the warmongers inside of the Likud party right now. And he said Israel has no interest in joining the renewed U.S. military campaign against Iran, arguing that the current U.S.-Iran conflict and sustained economic pressure on Tehran benefits Israel. So why do the Israelis need to join if the U.S. is going to do their job for them? They left Trump high and dry on this, and yet Trump goes along with it. It's absolutely amazing when you really think about it. They'll be there in 2 minutes, really? They will not be there in 2. They won't be there at all. Why aren't they there now, then? If Iran is this existential threat to certainly Israel, they're much closer to Israel than they are the United States, why wouldn't they join us and work with us side by side to defeat this so-called imminent threat to these two wonderful democracies? Why would the Israelis bow out of that? Why would they then instead go to Lebanon and try to displace 1.5 million Lebanese from their homes in southern Lebanon? Why would they do that instead? Lebanon's not posing any threat to them. Anyone that looks at the material understands this. So clearly Trump is talking out of both sides of his mouth. They're obviously not going to come and aid us in anything. They started this war, and we are now trying to finish it for them. That's what it's all about. It is in Israel's interest that the United States go in and start do this. That's what it comes down to. They want us to continue on with all of this. Now, President Trump said that relations with Benjamin Netanyahu are very good, and I will meet with him if he's in town for Lindsey Graham's funeral next week. So, we're looking at what Pete Hegseth is doing right now. Yesterday, he was speaking to Congress, and he was obviously trying to usher in much more money for the military security industrial complex, ladies and gentlemen. We obviously need that if we're going to have this prolonged war. That's what it all comes down to. Now, I do want to share this with you. I think this is very, very important. And I played you much of what was said yesterday, and it's not too far off from, I think, where we are today, of course, in this war. But I want you to hear this exchange again between John Ossoff of Georgia and Pete Hegseth yesterday about what is the real state of this war with Iran. Take a listen.
3 weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate statements?
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Mr. Secretary, you stated 4 months ago that Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been, for the last 4 months, combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
Mr. Secretary, you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Was that an accurate statement 4 months ago?
The main objective of this was to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
Early in the conflict
Iran will
on
never
day
have
3,
a nuclear
Mr.
weapon.
Secretary, early in the conflict, day 3, you said one of those core objectives was to, quote, destroy the missile threat. And as you restated on day 5, to, quote, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Those were clearly and repeatedly stated core objectives of the campaign, which 4 months ago you declared had been completed victoriously with every single objective achieved. Were those objectives achieved 4 months ago?
No one ever stated that every single missile was gone.
You stated on March 8th, day 9 of the war, on 60 Minutes, you assured the American people of Iranian surrender. Does that remain your prediction?
Ultimately, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon to threaten the United States of America. That has been the objective, and it remains so.
That is complete nonsense. He's dodging the questions. His statements are baseless, in my estimation. I can't see anything he said there that was correct. We're not stopping them from getting a nuclear weapon. We're pushing them towards getting one. Anyone that listens, especially my show, this is the direction the Iranians are headed in. They were not headed on that direction prior to February the 28th, 2026. We are pushing them in this direction. Why? Because the Iranians understand something. Even if President Trump comes in good faith, he can still easily strike them surreptitiously and begin to attack the country. He's done that 3 different times now. 3 different times. Last June, February the 28th, and just a couple weeks ago, when we decided to violate the Memorandum of Understanding on our own terms for the entirety of it. But now we were escorting ships through the Yemeni side of the Strait of Hormuz. This was against what the Iranians had negotiated with the ships in the region. They had put out warnings saying, you will coordinate with us, you will go through the Iranian side. What did the United States do? We started bringing in ships through the Omani side, escorting them. This is why those ships were attacked. It wasn't just because the Iranians were attacking ships in the region. The facts are the facts here. The United States were the ones that egged on this to happen, likely because we got our military weaponry in the region to resume these attacks. We felt we were confident to begin the war again. That's what it's all about. And never forget when I told you, a ceasefire is nothing more than a pause in a conflict. That is all it is. And that's what this was. Again, Sally J.D. Vance alluded to this when he was asked about this recently. He said, well, the Memorandum of Understanding is just so we can get our military equipment up and running again. That's what it's all about. But now we're in a very big problem because now our stockpiles are depleting very low. China's not giving us the rare earths that we need in order to reproduce them. And then where do we go from here once we run out of this? What does our country do when we literally have nothing at all? We've never seen a situation like this before, so I can't estimate what would actually happen if we just blew through the entirety of our Patriot missiles, our Tomahawk missiles, THAAD, JASSMs, you name it. What do we do then? How does the world respond to that? Also, by the way. I've asked you many times in the past, I've said, who is actually advising the president? Now, I've got information from certain people that have suggested that President Trump simply watches Fox News and gets his information from that, and if that's true, God help us all. Here was General Kellogg talking about what the Houthis were doing and what our response should be to that. Take a listen.
Look, I don't think you can put a timetable on it. I don't think you should. You have to do it based on conditions on the battlefield. And I believe that's what the president's doing, rightfully so, with the Secretary of War and also Dan Kay, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. This expansion of activity by the Houthis into Mandeb Strait is causing us a problem. There's really, when you look at it, there's 2 major oil straits that are in control by the Iranians and the Houthis as well. One is the Mandeb Strait on the Red Sea, which is basically 20 miles wide, and the Strait of Hormuz. And the reason why the one on the Red Sea is important, because the Saudis tried to offset sending stuff through the Strait of Hormuz by building a long-range pipeline to Yanbu, which is kind of in the middle of the Red Sea, and exporting it through the south. And they've done a good job at that. And then you've got the Houthis out there with their drones. I think they're just going to keep punching through it. We'll keep reacting to it. It clearly shows that they're a surrogate of the Iranians, and the president is right about what he's trying to do. But it's kind of interesting now.
So he's encouraging for more war. This is what this is all about, more war. Oh, we see them punching through now. He acts like the Houthis simply just shut down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. There was no precursor to that whatsoever. The Saudis never attacked them. And by the way, the east-west pipeline, which he's referring to, was already in effect. It was just being used because they can't get access to the Strait of Hormuz. So they were exporting everything across the country, putting it through the pipeline to Yanbu, as he said, as I've said, and they were using that route. Well, now the Saudis had the brilliant idea, probably again pushed through by the United States, I would have to imagine, to go ahead and start attacking the Houthis, who were not attacking them prior to this. Folks, I wish it made sense. I wish there was some logic behind all this. It simply does not appear to be so, unfortunately. So I think as President Trump listens to the likes of Kellogg and Kane and General Keane, if you will, he sees that, okay, if I just keep persisting, if I keep doing this, something different is going to happen. Something is going to break inside the Iranian government. And finally, we'll have our win. Well, again, I don't know if we're still anticipating for regime change or to, as Pete Hegseth said, to limit their stockpiles, if you will. I don't know what the next step is. I've got to be honest with you. I don't know what the next step is. We don't know what a win looks like. But in the meantime, we're seeing that the United States right now is also deploying the B-1 long-range bombers on Tuesday. This was told to Axios. And this was the first time the U.S. conducted a B-1 mission since fighting with Iran, resuming 12 days ago. Just to say what I've told you before, this is signaling a major escalation in this war moving forward. Again, we're losing troops, where we have casualties as a result of this resumption in this war. I see no end in sight for this. I see, because there's no objective. What's the objective now? To prevent them from having a nuclear weapon? Well, what the hell are you doing dropping bombs on the country all over the place, hitting civilian targets, civilian infrastructure? How is that going to stop the Iranians from doing that? We were hearing talks of hitting Pickaxe Mountain. That's not happening. When is that going to happen? And will that even be effective? Can our missiles even strike the facility if we use them? We've got to be honest with what's taking place right now. And I seldomly see this in the mainstream media, the airwaves, you name it. No one is talking about this. How does this deter the Iranians from doing what they're doing? Or does this actually push them closer to saying, you know what? We're done with the negotiations, which is effectively what they've said right now. They've effectively said, if you're not going to adhere to the memorandum of understanding, we're done with this. We've left the table. Now, the Chinese are encouraging the Pakistanis to get the Iranians back to the table, of course. But they've made it very clear. We are sticking to this. This is what we signed. This is what we expect to have happen. And now, even if we come back to the table, we want this up front in good faith to even just consider talking to the United States again, which needs to happen, by the way, because we have economic turmoil right around the corner and no one seems to give a damn about that. So I don't know what President Trump is thinking. I don't know if he's expecting the Iranian government to just collapse randomly. I don't understand this. We can hit targets all throughout Iran. It's a massive country, folks. It's the size of Western Europe. It's huge. All the Iranians have to do is hit 12, 13 different bases in the region, and they're good to go. They're doing fine. They can just keep hitting those. Where are we going to stage our troops? Where are we going to refuel our jets? What is this? How is this going to happen? If our bases are getting hit constantly, what then are we going to use? Well, that becomes a new site for the Iranians. Once these sites just continue to be inoperable. And that's happening as time goes on. We now know that the Chinese are allowing for greater GPS tracking of the sites and how these missiles work, and that the Iranians are hitting these targets. We know they're upping the ante too, just like the United States is. So nothing's being mitigated here. Everything is just escalating in the wrong direction. And the Iranians are not budging. So that just tells you everything. That number one, they don't want to make a deal. But number two, there is no end in sight to this. We don't even know what a win looks like. We don't even know what the objective is. Pete Hegseth says 1 second it's them not having a nuclear weapon. Okay, Pete, well, they weren't building a nuclear weapon when we first attacked them. So what the hell was the point of the attack in the first place? Well, it was for regime change. He doesn't want to admit that. But that's what it was all about. It was all about regime change. We didn't get that, so now what does it have to be about? Well, it's got to be about opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Those damn Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. They told us they would. We ignored that because we thought we were going to have regime change in 3 to 5 days, which didn't happen. And now we've got to open up that strait again. They're holding the world hostage. That's what Marco Rubio said. They can't do that, even though it's their own territorial waters. We depleted their military, their air force, their air defense, their navy. Everything's depleted. Well, then how are they still attacking our bases? How are they still killing our American troops? Injuring our troops? Hitting our base? How are they able to do this if we have accomplished all this so early on in the war, Pete? Can you explain that to me? Give me another quote from Pulp Fiction or something. What is going on here? No, they can't tell us. They can't be straight with us and tell us what the hell's going on. And, folks, we were, again, goaded into this. President Trump is under the illusion the Israelis will be right by our side in this, even though they have clearly stated they will not be. And yet we continue to play the game. The charade continues on. It is us versus the Iranians in a war that we cannot win. And I don't say this to impugn our military. We have a great military. We really do. We have great people that serve, that love our country, 100%. But we are right now in a war that we cannot win. And when that makes sense to you, when you sit down and actually think about it, we're going on to, over 4 months of this war now, going back and forth. We're not achieving anything. The economy is getting much, much worse. We change our objectives. We change the goalposts time and time again. We keep hearing about a nuclear weapon. Well, where is the nuclear weapon that they have? They can't tell us. But they assure us that they were ready to build one, of course. And, of course, it's those Iranians that are bagging out of every single deal when it's really been the United States. The Israelis and the United States attacked Iran first, ladies and gentlemen. So when Pete Hegseth says that they're the number one state-sponsored terrorism, they haven't attacked another country since the 1700s. Yeah, 1700s, folks. Haven't attacked any of their neighbors since the 1700s. And yet they're the number one state-sponsored terrorism? Yeah, folks, I think if you actually look into it and see who the Iranians have attacked, it's been other countries invading them where they respond to that, not the other way around. Just want to be honest with you, of course. And on that note, I want to talk with you about this. I mentioned this yesterday, of course. I'll bring it up to you briefly. I talked with you about the House voting on the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Authorization Act yesterday, which did come to a pass, 216 to 12 vote. Only 7 Republicans were among the naysayers in this. We needed a lot more, and unfortunately, we did not get it. And I just want to say their names because these people were the ones that were actually acting on behalf of true liberty. And their names, Thomas Massie, of course. Remember the same Thomas Massie they want to oust from the Congress, of course. Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, Eli Crane, Eric Hageman, Brett Sheen, I don't know the first name of who this one is, and Chip Roy of Texas, who was running for Attorney General and did not win his seat. Again, Chip Roy is a fairly solid congressional member. That's it, folks. That's all we have on the Republican side. Everybody else voted to allow the United States to expand and be a part of now the Israeli government. Expanding defense technology cooperation. Expanding military cooperation. Weapons cooperation. And other resources that go involved with more war. When the hell are we going to get out of the business of having more war in this country? Aren't you sick of these wars? We continue to go all over the world, dropping bombs here, going to war here, putting boots on the ground here. What the hell do we ever get from any of this? Is the world a safer place, ladies and gentlemen? Of course it's not. Of course it's not. And instead of focusing right here at home, defending our own borders, I'd rather have our brave young men and women right there in the southern and northern border, ensuring that nobody is going to cross into this country illegally into our country, than having them all over these 800 bases all around the world, doing God knows what, for God knows who. Let's put America first for once in our lifetime. Let's secure our own nation's borders, our own sovereignty, and put our own interests where they need to be, first. And sadly enough, we're not seeing this from this administration as we thought we would. Certainly I thought that. I voted for President Trump 3 different times. I believed he was going to fix our economy, fix our military, bolster up our military to where it needs to be. Certainly not starting foreign wars for other countries. Didn't expect that at all. But this authorizes the $1.15 trillion in national security spending, obviously establishing priorities for the Department of Defense for the upcoming fiscal year. Now, the part at hand in this bill that I told you was problematic was Section 219. Certainly would expand the U.S. Israel Defense Technology Cooperations. We have Representatives Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna reacting with disdain after the House passed this yesterday. By the way, there were a handful of Democrats. Really, Democrats and Republicans are right on board with this. You know, they throw a couple of, Democrats to vote for this so it actually gets passed. And then they pretend like, oh, no, we're the party that's against all this. Oh, really? Then why'd you have so many people flake to the other side then? If you're all in tandem with what's going on here. In lockstep. Obviously not. Obviously not. I mean, this is a fight right now. Goes to the Senate right now. But this is a fight against military integration with a foreign government. Nobody seems to be caring about this. Nobody I've heard of, haven't seen it on the mainstream news, hadn't heard it on the radio, is actually talking about what exactly is going on here. Now, I said in great detail just that yesterday on the program, so I encourage you to go and listen to the various sections that are, again, problematic to me. But it hands away our sovereignty. Nobody seems to be caring about this. We are a sovereign nation. We are not joined at the hip with another country. Why would we be? We shouldn't be. Not in any circumstance whatsoever. But just to give you a little tease as to where this is headed, they even brought in Prime Minister Netanyahu to speak to, I believe it was Fox and Friends, I don't know. This is on Fox News, though. And this is what he was asked, and this is what he had to say. Take a listen.
Minister, will that drawing down of foreign aid from the United States to Israel be compensated by the proposal to have a merging of some sort between our Pentagon and your military?
Yeah, I'm calling it from aid to partnership. So we take away the money that is given to Israel, which is one part, but the other part is we co-invest in equal measures in the new technologies that are needed to give our military and your military the advantage. So
I got to stop this right here. This is such nonsense. They're going to invest in our military? How are they going to do that when we give them everything they need for their military? Where are they going to come up with this money? So this is a bait and switch. Instead of us giving them the $3.8 billion every single year, which, by the way, I believe started under Obama, the Obamanator, now we're just joined at the hip. Now we just spend our money. The Israelis come in and take what they want to take, what they need. Any intel we get, we just hand it right over to them. No questions asked. Just, hey, drop it right off to them. They're going to invest in our military. What are they going to invest? We give them economic aid. We give them all their military. We pay every dime for their military. Everything in their military is funded by you and I. So what is this nonsense they're going to be paying into this in some way? How much are they going to pay us? Where are they going to get this money from? Ladies and gentlemen, without us, I'm not saying this to be rude, but this is the truth of the matter. Without the United States, Israel would not function as a government. They would not. There's no way they could. They certainly wouldn't have any type of military. So what is Netanyahu talking about? There's no way in hell they're going to be spending any of their own money on this. This is just simply now, they're just going to be taking whatever the hell they want. That's what it comes down to. This is where it is now. They'll get the intelligence they want. They'll get the resources they want. Any type of weaponry they want, they'll just simply take it. It'll just be signed right off to them. And the president has limited force as to stop that. Let's continue.
there are some unbelievable projects. So we invest jointly and take the fruits equally. You move from aid to partnership, and I think that represents what Israel is. And remember, the other thing is that we share with America unbelievable intelligence to save American life. General Keegan has said that when he was working in American intelligence, what Israel was giving the United States was worth, he said, 5 CIAs. I'm not trying to be mathematically exact, but Israel's contributions to America's defense are important. Our technology is incredible. And since yours is incredible too, and you're the great champion of liberty and free markets, I think the meshing of our two great countries of talent would would strengthen America's position, competitive position, both in the economic marketplace and in the military battlefield in many important ways. So that's the idea. The idea is to take away aid, one-sided aid, and move it into, bilateral investments for common benefit.
There's no way they invest anything. None. But listen to what he said at the very end there. He said, take away the aid, and we go at it equally. So whatever the United States produces, the Israelis come in and take half of it? Is that what we're understanding here? How does this work out in the long term? How does this benefit our own defense? When the hell is Israel going to war with the United States? Does anyone want to ask? They want them to go to war with us right now. And we're just handing away our weaponry. Our stockpiles are extremely low. We're just going to hand over intelligence to them? And did you hear what he said too? Oh, it's like we got our intelligence is like 5 CIAs. Well, good. That's a good case to end the CIA, isn't it? Let's end the CIA if that's the case. Why do we need the CIA then? We don't need it. Apparently, according to Netanyahu, Mossad is apparently 5 times greater. All that intelligence they've been giving us about terrorism and for defense purposes, they've done a great job, have they not, folks? Unbelievable, these lies. Unbelievable. This is the same Israel that attacked us, certainly in June of 1967, the USS Liberty. This is the same Israel who Jonathan Pollard, that Israeli spy piece of human excrement, gave all of our nuclear secrets to the Israeli government, who then gave it to the Russians, folks, in case you haven't forgotten that. And of course, President Trump allowed him to return to Israel. No harm done. He shouldn't be sitting in a jail cell rotting away, if you ask me. But I'm very concerned about this. This erodes our sovereignty. This erodes, really, anyone acting in Congress from stopping this transfer of weaponry, intelligence, and sharing it just openly. I mean, where are the safeguards on all this? There are none. Think of it like this. If you're building a bunch of cars, right? Okay, let's say you're an automobile maker, you're building cars, and you have another car company nearby that you say, you know what, we're going to merge our companies together. And then somebody that works for your company goes, well, wait a minute, they don't build any cars. All they do is drive the cars. They don't build anything. And they say, well, no, this is a great idea. It's going to be very beneficial to us. Hey, they give us these specs all the time. We trade all the specs with us, the patents on all this. We're going to trade with this entity, if you will. That's the same exact scenario. They don't produce a damn thing. They don't produce their own weapons. They don't even pay for their own weapons. So how the hell are they going to pay us? It's all about them taking, in this war with Lebanon, and of course they're eyeing Turkey right now too, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not lying to you. This is what they're saying. And tensions with them will not improve even if they get a new prime minister with the Iranians. Naftali Bennett has made that very clear. But Greater Israel is still very much on their minds. This is exactly what they would like. And now we are just using our weaponry to be given to them in Gaza, the West Bank, in Lebanon. If they decide to go into Turkey after Lebanon, Egypt, if they decide to go that way. I mean, there's so many scenarios for them. But this is all about merging the two together. This is what it all comes down to. And how the hell do we have members that are supposed to represent the United States actually go in there and actually vote for this nonsense? Did they not read it? Did they not read that this integrates the U.S. military with that of the Israelis or not? Because I'm obviously Tom Cotton's all on board with this. They need 60 votes, folks. So I'm encouraging you, if you're listening to my show, ladies and gentlemen, you have got to call your senator right now of your state. Call both of them. The number is 202-224-3121. I called my representation yesterday. I said this is illegal. This is unconstitutional to merge our military with that of a foreign power. If you vote for this, I will not support you in your upcoming election, and I will encourage everyone around me to also not vote for you again. This is and you could add this is treason too. This is treason. That's exactly what it is. I might call again today, too. This is it, folks. This is our last stand. This erodes our sovereignty. And the fact that people are okay with this. We actually have representation that would pass such garbage legislation, not on top of the enormous increase in spending we have. Obviously, we have to now because we're depleting everything around us. Pete Hegseth goes, well, we might not be able to pay for the training and this. Well, what have you done with the money, Pete? Where's the money gone? Genius. Where the hell is it? That you can't pay for training for the service members, pay them? Where's the money going, Pete? You have a massive budget, Pete. Where the hell's the money going? Why should we spend more money on this war that we're not winning? Right? He's begging for more money right now. He wants I think it's $80 billion. I see the numbers 75, 80, God knows what it is. I saw one that said it was $67 billion. We know that he's lowballing us too on how much money's been spent. He suggests it's $37.5 billion. I suggest it's much, much higher. But folks, if you're listening to me, please, it takes about a minute tops. You get the call board. They ask you who you'd like to speak with. You should know who your 2 senators are for your state. You can even call other senators too and say, listen, vote against this. You need to vote against this because X, Y, and Z. This is why we have a representative republic, folks. We tell our representation what to do. Flood them. Call them. Get family members to call as well. The number again, 202-224-3121. You'll get the board. It'll say, who is your representative you'd like to speak with? You say their name. They call you back and say, is this the name you wanted? You say yes. And they put you through to their line. And you just leave a message. That's all that's all we really can do at this point, isn't it? But what I'm seeing right now, and I've seen this shift, even Bernie Moreno, who is considering voting for this, is now saying, you know what? This is too much. He said, I'm a supporter of Israel, but this is too much to merge our military with theirs. This is the change we have to have, folks. So call your representation. They cannot get to 60 votes. This has got to be taken out. And we need to make a bigger stand about this. The media is not telling you about this, but I am. I'm pissed about this. I can't believe this is happening. That we're actually merging our military with that of another's. It's unbelievable. And not in any meaningful way. It's not like they're merging so they can go to war with us. That's quite the opposite. You heard Smotrich say this. Netanyahu feels the exact same way. It's absolutely unbelievable. I'm so disappointed in our representation. This is what we get. This is what we get. This type of nonsense. Okay, folks. Now that my blood pressure is, again, spiking beyond all levels that are normal, let me go on to another topic. Well, this one's actually going to cause it to go up as well. The Associated Press says that Brent crude now tops $100 per barrel, and I'm sure you won't forget that I've told you. If oil stays over the $100 mark for any extended period of time, it's only going to continue on from there, of course, but that will further push us to the economic cliff that we seem to be running straight towards in this administration for some reason. Reasons, I will say, probably has a lot to do with Israel, if I'm betting. But staying in this war, of course, is very problematic, folks. But this is why this is happening. We're seeing the stock market responding in kind. Looks like Brent crude right now is sitting at $100.21 per barrel. It's up. It was up a little bit more earlier. It has gone down just a tiny bit, but it was just over $101 before I started this program today. West Texas Intermediate also, same thing, over $90, almost $92 per barrel. Once we stay above this $100 mark, and as Trump continues to say, we're going to attack here, we'll attack there, everything just goes along with it. It's just going to keep going up and up and up. Now, you might get some back and forth because you might come out and say, well, they want to make a deal again. Oh, yeah, another deal. Yeah, they always want to make a deal. They never come out and say it, do they? I'll believe it when I hear the Iranian government tell us this. So we're headed for the precipice of higher gas prices, and as a result of that, higher food prices, commodity prices, all that will continue to rise significantly, folks. Oh, by the way, President Trump he went out there to campaign for whomever is running for the Georgia Senate seat, I believe against John Ossoff. I don't know the candidate's name, forgive me. But this is what he actually said to the Georgians yesterday. Take a listen to this.
So, ladies and gentlemen of Georgia, The golden age of America is upon us. We are in the golden age. This is the greatest we'll ever be. And together, with your help and the patriots all across this magnificent land, we love our country. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Georgia.
I think he still believes he's on the campaign trail. Like he's actually not president yet. And he's trying to, spew all this nonsense out to us as if we don't know what's going on. Now, of course, they put the clapping seals, right behind him. So it looks like people are on board with what he's saying, which God knows what he said during the speech. This is the best we can do? Is that what he actually said? We're in the golden age. This is the best it will be? Really? This is it? This is it, folks. This is the best we're going to have right now. Maybe this is foreshadowing for the remainder of Trump's presidency. I don't know. Again, I don't think the Democrats would be any bit any better. Obviously not. We've seen their track record as well. Where do we go from here? That's an honest question. Where the hell do we go from here, folks? If the Republicans are going to actually merge our military with that of Israel's, they will, again, go along with every single war, allow oil to skyrocket as it is right now. Who's out there trying to work for the American people? Oh, yeah, Thomas Massey is. People like Thomas Massey, who they've kicked out because he won't go along with Israel. I'll let you figure that one out. Just so we understand this, and by the way, I was going to go over this tomorrow. I'm going to go over it with you right now, though. This is extremely problematic. We have a few moments remaining in today's program. The U.S. 10-year bond yield right now is sitting at 4.7%. That's extremely high. Once this Treasury bond begins to hit the 5% yield right now, folks, which again is one of the main indicators and one of the main points of which is reaching the market level shock we're seeing right now. What that means when this hits 5, and right now I believe, again, I checked this earlier, let me just check again with you. It's just sitting right around 4.7%. Okay, so we're close. We're very close. Once that hits 5%, we are going to see the interest on the money already borrowed. Means we can't pay that off. That's what it comes down to. Why does it mean that? Well, it will take the 10-year yield bond and refinance the, already $1 trillion in interest we pay every single year. That becomes 1.3%. This means we cannot service the debt. This is what it comes down to. And one of the purposes of the bond market, ladies and gentlemen, is to get other countries to buy our debt. Obviously, China is one of the big proponents of that. But if we cannot roll over the maturing treasury bonds because nobody wants them, and if China starts to dump them quickly, nobody buys our debt, then how do we, again, recover from that? How do we roll that over if nobody's buying the debt? So I want you to understand this. What the bond market does is say, hey, we have this much amount of debt. You buy up this debt. It allows us to roll this over. We can borrow more, and we borrow more. We add more to the national debt. And you throw the money in. You get some money back when you obviously let the bond mature. But the problem is, what if nobody wants it? That means the government has to default in this massive, almost $40 trillion of national debt that we find ourselves in. So we're at a crossroads with this bond market right now. We're at almost a watershed moment, if you will. And again, it's going in the wrong direction. It's not going down. Everything is going up. The oil futures are continuing to go up. Remember, if it stays above that $100 mark, which I believe it will, it just brings us closer and closer to that point of which there is no return. You'll see the debt service economy begin to crash, of course. You'll see the private credit insurance, the private credit industry market collapse as well. People won't be able to borrow. I mean, it's going to be very, very bad. As if not to make matters much, much worse already, folks. So I say this to you. We're going to go over the economy in great detail tomorrow. That's obviously very, very important, of course. But I wanted to share some of this with you today because this is what's happening. This is a result of this war that we find ourselves in. And for some reason, nobody ever seems to be talking about this. This is the direction we're headed. And it's not for the golden age of America, folks. It's for the, I don't even know what age we're in. But it's certainly nothing golden about it. If this is the best we can do, we're in lots of trouble, folks. All right, that's all we got for you today, folks. Thank you again for being here today. I appreciate everybody so much. Please share the show with somebody so you can wake people up. Make sure you're always staying prepped with your essentials as our economy and the markets continue to spiral out of control. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow as always. I gotta go. Stay busy. Be good. God bless.